Welcome to Faith, Fuel, and Fitness, the Integrity Way, with your hosts, John and Debbie Morris from Integrity Training Systems.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is John and Debbie Morris with Integrity Training Systems on Real Talk 93.3. We have a super exciting show for you today, a little different than what we normally do. We have our good friends, Josh and Rauchel Koehnemann, on. They are the owners of KBuild. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you
so
for having
excited.
us.
Yes, we're actually going to be doing things a little bit different. Like I said, we're going to be talking about godly marriage today. This is something that I know Rauchel and Debbie have spoke about, and they do a podcast together that you can check out as well in relation to our faith and the types of things that we believe in. And we just have felt led to talk about healthy, godly marriages and what it takes to have that. We do always like to start our show, which is called The Warrior Show, by talking about what it means to be a warrior. So we'll kind of start a little bit with that and then lead into what I just mentioned. But if you look at the definition of a warrior, it means a brave and or experienced soldier or fighter. And I always like to tell people that a lot of times we get afraid that we're not going to be able to overcome something. And we're like, well, I'm too afraid of that. I'm not brave enough to overtake this situation. But it says or experienced. And anybody that's ever come through anything has experience, right? You know, we've all been through something. So if you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm not a warrior, I can't overcome this situation, and I've never really overcome anything, I assure you that you have. And if you've done that, as long as you have a warrior mentality and you press into what it is that's standing in front of you, you can take that on. And so we like to always talk a little bit about just things that we've been experiencing through the week or clients that we've dealt with have been experiencing and what allows us to feel like we can warrior through so that people know that they're not alone out there. So, Deb, let's talk a little bit about something that you have in this regard, and then maybe we can have them talk about something as well.
Sure. I know just from the topic, you know, the topic that we chose, Rauchel and I, you know, kind of went through this list of topics that we wanted to do for our Bible study. And so today when it was regarding marriage, we just decided let's all do this together. You know, let's all get 4 very busy people together in the same room, which is amazing. So I'm sure someone will definitely be blessed by this information. But for me, about a year ago, I really felt like God just said, Debbie, you need to start to equip your marriage because you've got something big coming. And I know what we have coming, and I know what's ahead, and I know what we have to prepare for, and it's going to be big, and it's going to take a lot of work, and a lot of lives are going to be saved and changed from it. But I also know that the enemy will come in, and he will weaken you and knock you out at the knees. And so I just felt God say, strengthen your tent posts, and that meant strengthen your marriage. Now, at the time, I didn't necessarily feel like I had a bad marriage. I actually felt like we had a great marriage. John and I have been to hell and back several times together, so many different types of situations, but it's like we've gotten through it together, and I just can't even imagine living without John. At some point, I hope that, at some point, I hope that whenever it's time to leave this earth, we leave together, because I just don't really imagine a day without him. But as I went into this moment of thinking, okay, the reason I'm strengthening my marriage is because of what's ahead. So how do I do that, God? What would you have me to do? So I read 3 books, okay? They were pretty intense books. They were Christian-based books, and there was a lot in these books. And I was reading thinking, wow, okay, this is very eye-opening. I want to be that for my spouse. I want to care about my spouse that way. And I thought I already did. I actually really did. I thought I was stepped up and I was giving him 100%. But I mean, there were areas I really needed to improve on. And I've worked for the past year really hard at doing that. So I guess my warrior mentality was I just dug in about a year ago and said, I'm building a hedge of protection against my marriage. And we will fight together. We will battle together. And like we will set ourselves up at the front line together. We will equip ourselves. And spiritual warfare is real. And when you are trying to fulfill the call and purpose that God has for your life, the enemy will attack in such a strong manner. And the thing that he will do that you're not looking for is he'll use your spouse against you. You guys will work against each other instead of together for the purpose. And so you have to be looking for those areas that he can do that to you. And I think we have really strengthened things in the past year to basically try to just eliminate strife in any way and like come together respectfully and just like a force, just get through life better.
I think that's what I love about watching you two in business too, is I can see that.
Yes.
You know, you see husbands and wives that work together, and you can see where one of them might say something kind of slanderous about the other, or, you know, you can kind of tell by how they're looking at each other that they're smiling, but they're actually ticked off at each other.
Right.
And I don't see that from you guys. I mean, you can see it in your media work, and we went to that event for your employees, which was phenomenal. And
So
the way
much.
you guys cohesively worked there was so amazing. So we've got about 5 minutes left in this segment. So could you guys just give us a little input when you guys think about like warrioring through what you do, as busy as you are, all of the stuff that you have to take on a daily basis, all of those employees you keep up with, how do you guys do that to keep your marriage so tight amidst that much business work? Yeah, he's like, I got 5 minutes. Like,
So I think one of the strongest things that I've actually learned from Josh is about looking forward and not looking backward.
Amazing.
So that helps us in a mega way. Like, we will address a situation. Also, both of us are very direct. So, that helps when you're solving problems, when you can just be direct. You know, sometimes it hurts, but we have thick skin, so I can't be easily offended by the things that he says because he's vocal. I'm thankful that at least he's vocalizing the way that he feels and things like that, so I try not to be easily offended. But ultimately, like, we'll be in a conversation, we'll have the conversation. It's kind of, you've kind of talked it all out, and there's not really a lot left to be said sometimes, and he'll be like, all right, it's done. Like, you got to get over yourself. Move on.
Right.
And I'm like, whoa.
Why
Am I
linger?
done?
Yes.
And I'm like, I actually don't have anything less, and he'll just be like, it's time to move on. That's actually
great.
behind us. And if I mention anything about it, he'll be like, what are you even talking about?
Right.
Like, it's not even in our
He's
wheelhouse.
done with
It's gone.
Right.
It's done. So I can't address it any longer.
That's really
so
good.
And so just not focusing on the trip ups
Yes.
yeah.
and just trudging away forward.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Has been big for us.
I know that's something that you hear a lot of times, motivationally said, is that the reason your windshield is bigger than your rear view is because you're supposed to be looking forward, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times it becomes really easy to get hung up on what has occurred that kind of hurt your feelings. And I had a pastor say this once. He doesn't even remember saying it, so I need to stop giving him credit and pretend I said it. But he said, there's always going to be offenses in the world, but you get to choose whether or not you're offended.
Yep.
And so sometimes I find that married couples that haven't had the training that we're talking about, haven't put as much effort into it as you guys have, is something can kind of happen and you can be a little offended by it. And so they start planning or thinking about how they're going to kind of make their spouse feel what they felt. Like, oh, well, I don't really like the way that made me feel. So I think I'm going to kind of hang on to that a little bit. And then the next thing that I'm going to have a conversation about is going to be how it kind of bothered me. It's like they're setting up their next chess move instead of just being like, that probably isn't even how they meant that, and moving on. To your point, even with Josh, like, something did happen. Okay, we have a conversation, we move on. It's like we don't have to play chess.
Even if something is offensive, the thing is that, have we ever said offensive things to each other? Sure. But at the end of the day, I know my husband's heart. So his heart was not to offend me. Maybe he was trying to get my attention.
Correct.
And I didn't like how he got my attention, but still I have to choose to just move on from those things.
Correct.
And leave it at surface level, not take it internally, not let it get deeper, not let it take root and just start growing this ugly thing. Like, it is choice for both of us to, again, cut it off and move forward.
Let's be a buffalo.
Okay, what does that mean?
So a buffalo only goes straight into the storm.
Okay.
And cows go with the storm to run away from it, but they stay in the storm forever.
Interesting.
And that's what most people do. So I heard that it's called into the storm, but buffaloes are the only animal on earth that go straight into every storm.
That's awesome.
And so if you go straight into every storm, you deal with your problems head on, whatever that is, whether it's business, life, marriage, and then you're over the problem, you solve the problem, or you come to a conclusion of the problem, and then you keep moving forward.
I love that.
So it also says in the Bible, in Proverbs, to only focus forward.
Yeah.
That's so good.
It also says in Proverbs to just drop the matter before it becomes a quarrel.
Yes.
So if you're going to read the Bible, you have to do it with intent.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah, I think intent is the biggest thing. You have to learn to know somebody's intent. And if you're actually truly in tune, like you're saying, his heart, then you know the offense isn't the intention, and that allows you to kind of press into that.
Absolutely. I think it's just expecting the best. I mean, and assuming the best instead of assuming the worst about some. I mean, sometimes we have bad days, but still continue to assume the best about someone. And like you said, just confront it, hit it, be frank about it, be candid about it, and then move forward and stop dragging yourself back into it, because you get nothing from that. We are happy to be doing this show, and we're so thankful to be sponsored by Integrity Training Systems. For more information on what Integrity Training Systems does, you can take a look at integritytrainingsystems.com. For gluten-free, dairy-free baked goods delivered to your doorstep from my personal bakery, you can take a look at sophiesbakery.com. And for 100% grass-finished beef, the only meat that the Morris family will eat, take a look at fedfromthefarm.com.